series that I completely checked out of, and that was Saw. I completely checked out of Saw.
I like their ridiculousness.
I checked out after the third or fourth one. I completely checked out, and then Spiral came out during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's a Chris Rock one.
Yep, the Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. So I actually saw that in the theaters during the pandemic. I was still going to the movie theaters during the pandemic, and I loved it. I was the only person there, but and like it was just so bad, and I was like, I gave that one a chance, and I was like, this is not good.
It's one of the lower. It's definitely lower tier Saw.
Yeah, and then
I don't mind them, to be honest. I kind of like, and I remember watching it thinking I wish it was more ridiculous.
Yeah.
I liked when it's like, oh, the paper boy who was delivering papers early on, he's the guy who's now holding the thing, and this person's now involved in the killing. It's insane. And like you can't even remember all the characters.
No, and then Saw X, I've been bashing Saw X and the new Exorcist way before they came out. I was like, oh shit, who the fuck wants to see that?
I wanted to see Saw X.
And I saw Saw X, and I'm telling you right now, I had to take back everything I said. It's so fucking good.
For the first half of Saw X, what I really liked about it was it reminded me. I don't know if you know David Mamet films like House of Games, Spanish Prisoner, that are essentially all con men films.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my god, I'm watching a David Mamet film where it's just this slow con going on. And I thought, like, I actually bought House of Games on Criterion while watching Saw X. It had me wanting to watch a David Mamet film so much.
But I had to take back what I said, and then I went to see The Exorcist. What's it? The Exorcist Beginning, or what the fuck's called? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I knew this movie was gonna be shitty, and this movie.
Yeah, it doesn't look very good. I might watch it one day. I'm not a big. I like the first one. I love the third one as well. But
I love the third one. Yep.
Like it's not a I usually like when it comes to franchises. Like after the first one, it's like it's gonna be hit or miss. There's gonna be the odd one that's like. There's never been a franchise except for Evil Dead and a couple others where it's like, oh, every one's a hit. Usually it's gonna be, like Halloween. I think 90% of them are unwatchable. Friday the 13th. I actually get a kick out of Friday the 13th. Like, I think there's so
some of them are tough to watch.
It's that low bar that they put
every time.
And I think it's long. See, I'm not a big fan of Nightmare on Elm Street because
I like the first. I like the first four.
I can see. I like part one. I like part three. Oh, I like part two. I do like part two a lot more now that I know about sort of the backstory of that and the sort of gay panic influence in the screenwriting. I really enjoy now. But when I first saw it, it was like, oh, not because of anything controversial, but just like it doesn't scare me. But I find most slashers, like what I don't usually once a slasher starts joking around, that's an immediate like, oh, for fuck's sake. I don't know if I've ever heard dialogue written for a slasher where I'm like, that's fucking clever. Good storytelling. Like it's all like Freddy, I think it's just the first one I can see like, okay, Wes Craven's trying to make him scary and stuff. I think by the end he's a buffoon, but he's saying so like, I'm Christy, I'm doing that. But by the end, it's just like, I'm sure Robert Englund is just like, do I have to say bitch in every fucking line? Like, that's your job, Robert. You say bitch.
But as that series goes on, Freddy Krueger is my favorite horror character. But as that series goes on,
sorry,
he becomes more of a cartoon character. Like
he does for sure.
He becomes and like, is Nightmare on Elm Street my favorite series? No, he's my favorite character because I like him because he has a personality. You know what I mean?
I don't like the I guess that's where we differ. Is I like that land shark of Jason. I love Ju-on, for example, the Ju-on movies. I like that you go in that house, you're gonna die. There's nothing you can do. You enter the Ju-on house, you can, recite sort of spells. You can do anything. You are going to die. You cannot survive going in the Ju-on house. I think that's what I really like in horror. And I like Jason as sort of this juggernaut of like death coming at you. And I find for the most part, what I don't like about the Nightmare on Elm Street teens is they're all angsty. No one understands me, teens. That I find difficult to watch. Like I do find.
But I have
like,
this.
Mom, you leave me alone, mother. And
See,
I find the Friday the 13th teens, Crispin Glover dancing, Corey Feldman making monsters.
Oh, I find them annoying. See, but I'm not a Friday the 13th fan. Like I
find them fun. I find them, a lot easier to.
Part 4, Part 6, and the reboot are my favorite.
Part 6 is a fucking masterpiece.
It is.
Part 6 is a great film. And I will say Scream gets all this credit for like, it's so meta. No, the only reason people think it's so meta is because it tells you this is meta. It speaks to the audience. Friday the 13th, Part 6 is so meta, and it owes so much to Universal films. It caught, what were you going to be when you grew up? It's funny. It's someone reading No Exit, a little kid. Mm-hmm. It's a brilliant film. Like if it was just a horror movie on its own, I think it would be considered a classic. And I think it is slowly becoming considered a classic.
It even had an amazing theme song by Alice Cooper, and I'm not even an Alice Cooper fan.
He's back.
I know. I love that fucking song.
Oh, it's fantastic. But no, I like the slasher genre. I'm not a big slasher guy. I found, like, I was alive during the time it was going. Like I was born in 1971, so in the 80s I was like getting in my teens, and my little sister was watching some slashers, and that's never a cool thing. But so I remember thinking, I was starting to get some critical thought at that time, and not just like, ooh, I like this, thinking like, by the time Child's Play and stuff was coming out, it's just like, oh my God, enough with the just people getting stalked by something or someone and getting killed. I want, it's all that horror's becoming. And then during the 90s, we had that big dry spell where no one really knew what to do with horror, because so many people thought horror was slasher films at that point, and you get the odd relic or something like that. And I do think slashers are kind of responsible for a big dead spot.
100%.
And I remember saying I was a horror fan. Like, this is when I was working as an editor in the industry, and people were like appalled, like, oh, you like seeing naked women being chased around? And it's like, well, besides that, there's a lot more to offer. Mm-hmm. The horror genre, you have a lot of freedom in there. It just, we're kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again till we've killed it. So I remember near the end really like wishing the slasher films would just stop. So I think that kind of has but I do have a lot of fun with a lot of them too.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely happened. Like, so I grew up in the 80s, and it was slasher, which I had fun with. And then it got to that point where, like you said, you start getting Freddy's Dead and shit like that. Like, it was just bottom of the barrel shit,
And you kind of wanted a good horror movie at that point. Like, okay, enough of this.
And then Wes Craven came out with Scream, which was something different, It was something different at the time. And then, but then that spawned.
I think 99 with Blair Witch and stuff like that, it really, horror movies just got new breath. And Scream is absolutely responsible for that. I might not be a big Scream fan, but I think it's definitely got it back on track.
But Blair Witch and Scream came out, and then the market got saturated with found footage and fucking Scream ripoffs. What I know.
Yeah, there was a lot of unwatchable 90s films.
It just got flooded with that shit. And then
when was Scream? When was Scream? I know Blair Witch was 99. Scream was before that.
I want to say Scream was like 97, 96.
Yeah, 96, 97. Yeah, there were a lot of those, like, I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Urban Legends. It was The Faculty. It was a lot of
Valentine, so many.
And every horror movie during that time had the same fucking Scream poster. Like, the front cover was the same. It had a whole bunch of people lined up looking at each other and like titles.
And I think also at that time in my life, I didn't really want to watch movies with teens all the time too.
That's
it's
exactly
like teens only take you so far. I wouldn't mind an adult.
And
it's weird because I know a lot of kids say like, oh, we want to see someone who we can identify with in movies. Like, if we're teenagers, we want to see teenagers. Whereas I think a lot of people from my generation, we wanted to see Charles Bronson. We wanted to see adults a lot. Sylvester Stallone. It wasn't always, there weren't as many teen, like actors, like other than like on TV.
But I was a teenager in that. I was a teenager in the late '90s, 2000s, right? And yeah, all of the movies, like you got Halloween H2O, it was all teen actors, but I never related to Josh Hartnett or Freddie Prinze Jr. Those guys were extremely good looking. Those guys were extremely good looking. I didn't relate to those guys.
Yeah, they were worlds away from me. I related more to Shelley in Friday the 13th Part 3. Why does everyone not like Shelley? He's a super cool guy. But yeah, I definitely I like the slashers, and I do think at the time I watch a lot of movies in retrospect now and like them a hell of a lot more than I did. Like Pumpkinhead 2, I remember when that came out. It was like, why can't we have a good horror movie? Why are we getting this garbage? But now that horror's back on track, I can look back on those and enjoy them for the schlock they are. Class of 1999, like so many that were coming out. I worked in video stores, and just like it would be so good to have like more Cemetery Mans that surprise you or something like that.
I have a guilty pleasure. I love the Leprechaun movies.
I like the one Steve Stansky did, the one recently.
I like the ones where he's in space and in the hood and all that stuff. I love the really bad. So I like bad movies. I'm telling you right now. Listen, it's hard to ask me when it comes to indie movies what's good and what's bad. Like something has to be really, really bad because I'll tell you, this movie's bad, but I like it. Like because I like bad movies. I find, I don't know. I just feel like especially if it's a bad movie and it knows it's bad and it doesn't take itself seriously. I love that.
I seldom call a movie bad unless it's like, you know, a big Hollywood. I watched a movie off YouTube the other day, a Canadian filmmaker in Vancouver, and I love the film. I thought it was fantastic. It was called Alien Predators. It was made for probably $1.50, and the first 20 minutes of it is essentially, if you're watching this,
is it the one with the cowboy guy running in the mountains?
No.
Okay. That's the one.
But so the first bit is like a screensaver, almost like a screensaver of the universe with like rock music playing underneath it and a woman walking through the park. 20 minutes. And you see her lay down, you see her put her phone up, and I guess she's looking at a UFO. It's open to, I guess, interpretation. And then it's about, she sees a UFO and she runs around the park trying to warn people like, hey, there's a UFO back there. And then when they say, get out of here, you crazy lady, usually with very precisely done strange dialogue. It's a riot. And I even like the slowness. It's like the Terrence Malick of meets Ed Wood or something, where at first when I was watching it, it's like, it's almost 2 hours. Am I going to be able to get through this? But when the first bit of dialogue comes and she's talking to the ducks and like, oh, hey, ducky, you're a duck. Oh, there's a baby duck. Oh, I love ducks. Okay, off I go. It's like, okay, you sold me. I'm watching this whole thing. And the monster, it looks like Elmo transforming into a werewolf. It's just like, it was a joy, but I would never call it bad. He has a different way of expressing himself, a unique way of storytelling. There's a little bit of Tommy Wiseau in there too. He stars in the movie. His name's Elliot Scott, I think it is.
Those. I love those. I love
vanity projects are the best.
I love.
That's what I was worried my film was going to be. I remember because when I made Schizopolis 2, and I thought, holy fuck, people are I'm in every shot of this fucking film. People are going to think it's a vanity project. And my friend's like, no, there's a story to go with it, man. Don't worry. Like, it's like, I can't hire another actor. And so I had a cast screening. I would say cast and crew screening, but it was me who was the crew and maybe the odd person I handed the camera to. Cast screening, so I had to watch it for the first time, sit there and watch it on a screen. And I was so afraid. It's like, oh my God, this is such a fucking vanity project.
I
Like,
love a good vanity project. I love a good
I
Neil.
like watching them. I don't want to be the star of one.
No, because
But luckily, people liked it. So I was very lucky where I don't think it's been called a vanity project once. But this guy, so this Elliot Scott, his character in the movie is called Elliot Hero. And the first woman who he runs into is so taken back by his handsomeness.
I love those. I love it.
It's a must watch, Alien Predators. But I would never call it bad because I like it so much. It's genuinely like it's bizarre. And then when the monster attacks, he stands above the victim for a while, and there is gore in it, but it's really surreal. It was something else. Like when it was over, I saw like, oh geez, I hope he fucking has other films on there. He's put out 4 films in the last month. So it's like, geez, if he keeps up at this rate, this is gonna be pretty amazing.
One of my favorite vanity projects is a movie called Samurai Cop Cop 1.
Part 1. Part 2.
There's part 2 out there too, right?
Oh, I do know part 2, but I know part 1 is the one I've seen.
And this was a couple months ago. I cannot even think of the director's name, but I was going through. I was about to interview a director, and I was going through his IMDb, and I saw that he was a producer of Samurai Cop 1 and 2. I was like, oh shit! I was like, I fucking love those vanity movies, and I was talking to him about.
They're real. When you find a great band, there's one called Get Even, one word, of course, Get Even, one word. I think it's also got another title, which Arrow Video maybe released it under. But look for Get Even, one word, and it's possibly my favorite vanity project. It's an action movie starring a lawyer who wrote himself as an action star. And I don't think he blinks during the whole movie. His name's John DeHart, and he does a musical number. He gets in fights. He talks with Wings Hauser. He's up against William Smith, not the Will Smith who slaps people, but the gruff Will Smith. But yeah, it's brilliant. So I was very happy when I've yet to hear anyone call my film a vanity piece. So
I'm gonna tell you a good vanity filmmaker, but I'll have to tell you off camera because I interviewed him. But
well, speaking, I was gonna say that's the other thing too, is I was really worried, about this vanity piece. Like, oh god, that I have the Wings thing, that's me. I have the reaction video, that's almost all me. And I did write another script. I actually wrote it, and I planned on doing it, but things are happening in my life right now where I can't do it. It's called It's Always Some Goddamn Thing or Another. And it's about me, Chris Brown again. And I cast someone else to play my wife. So it's Tomiko, but someone else playing Tomiko. It's not cast yet, but Tomiko said, I'm not doing this one. But so I die in the first scene, which most viewers will be like, yes. But I come back as a ghost. And I watch what essentially a couple months. At first, I'm sort of just hanging around the house while my wife doesn't know I'm there. I'm just sort of in the house, and I go across the road and like look at the name. And it's like just sort of me interacting, and meet other ghosts, a ghost who doesn't like me and always tries to avoid me. And then there's essentially a romantic comedy that happens between my wife and someone else, someone she meets on the street, and I have to be there as a ghost and watch it happen. And of course, I'm not very happy that this charming man, and then as the movie progresses, you find out that this man is actually not the charmer he thought he was. And I always keep the script next to my computer, because I do want to make it one day, and it's something I wrote. And is this any of your cards? These.
No.
Script shit, I'll never make it.
But I love a good vanity project. I love a good director.
But it's not something one aspires to. I will say, you may say you love a good vanity project, but would you want to make something that's called a vanity project?
No, but I'm just saying, I love a good vanity project where, where like they're the guy and women are like, oh my god, you're so fucking sexy, the sexy thing ever. I got to fucking have you right now, and they're having like,
I could not pull that off, even if
and
I wanted to make that.
and
But
it's like,
I think most of the time, if you want to make a movie starring yourself and you don't want it to be considered a vanity project, you got to take the Albert Brooks, the Larry David, that way, and you can't for a second put yourself on a pedestal. You
like
always
Steven
kind of
Seagal.
have to, like, I think in Schizopolis 2, I'm constantly thrown into chaos. And like what I eventually wound up making Schizopolis 2, when I decided it's going to be a fan film, is it starts out as a fan film that spirals out of control as it goes. It starts like, oh, this is the Schizopolis fan film, and by the end, there's drugs, there's snuff films, there's murder, there's
I had
all
fun.
these.
I had fun watching it. I really did. I had fun.
I hope that's what I want. I knew I had no money. I knew I couldn't do much. So I really wanted to make sure that it could progress with every scene. And if it doesn't progress in a scene, I think the only scene that possibly, doesn't progress the plot. I didn't want anything of people walking down a hall. I didn't want anything of people, doing something that's not leading into the next scene. And granted, walking down a hall leads into the next scene. But I said I can't have any fat on this because I don't have anything else to offer but the story and hopefully comedy, and hopefully you do wonder what's going to happen next to this poor Chris Brown guy who, is finding out all this horrible stuff he's done. So that was all I had to offer. So I did hope, that it kept people's attention and made them laugh, and it was stupid enough in parts that, you might get a kick out of it, or a lot of people have said it's weird and stuff like that, and they compelled them to keep watching. If I had to do it over again, I probably would get Tom Cruise to be in that first scene and maybe pop in, because a lot of people do click off it after a certain point once they realize like this is a home movie with narrative. Like he doesn't have any sort of filmmaking. There's no lighting. I use whatever available lights there. Because my main thing, Tomiko's, my wife, is very visual. And she was kind of like, well, why aren't you trying even a little bit to, like, you like stylish movies. Your favorite director is Sam Raimi. Like, what? And it's like, if I did that, I'd still be making it right now. Like, I just have to focus on trying to keep each scene progressing to the next one and entertaining enough where no one's going to click it off. And yeah, hopefully no one is bothered by me throwing a gamma filter on when it's too dark in the room, or using a digital zoom instead of actual camera movement, and all that's forgiven because, oh my God, it's a snuff film now.
Yeah. I got a serious question to ask you though.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Is it about my police record? Because I will talk very much about that.
All right. I'm trying to say put a serious face. Okay.
All right.
Hold on. What is see? All right. What is some advice you can give to a young filmmaker out there right now that's about to make their first project?
Well, it's a real catch-22, the advice I'd give, because it sort of, my advice cancels out the other advice, which would be, don't listen to me. I'm over 50 and I'm making YouTube videos. Don't be a fool. Listen to someone who's successful.
Like Tom Cruise.
Eat popcorn and the movies are back. Yeah. But if I'm to answer seriously, I would say my biggest regret is I didn't collaborate enough with people. I think filmmaking's such a competitive industry, and especially when you're around a lot of people with their own ideas, we all want to make our own thing. Like I had a group of friends going out of film school, and we all wanted to make our film and have and it never really worked out. I made a short. I wound up making the film that made me unhappy. But I would say really, really, really embrace collaboration. It's very easy in an industry where like you have to get your idea out there. Like you have to be very sure of yourself and like this idea needs to get made, to forget that other people's ideas are great too.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can combine things. And one of the people I admire very much, the guy who I was mentioning, his intestines in the hand in Schizopolis were made by this guy, Steve Kostansky. He's the guy who did the Leprechaun movie I really liked. He has a group here. They kind of get together here and there, called Astron 6. They did Manborg, Father's Day, The Editor. Like I love them with all my heart. I think they make great films. But they're a bunch of guys who got together, and one will direct one movie while another does light. They'll all act in the movies for the most part. And I really admire that. And it's like, God, I kind of wish, me and my film friends, and even you look back at the 70s of the Scorseses and the Spielbergs and the Lucases and the Schraders and De Palma, they were all helping each other out. So I would say, like, if you get a group of people with the same passion for film, help them. It's a very egomaniacal business we're in. And going to those movies during COVID. But and it's easy to kind of lose yourself in that ego. I think that's what made me unhappy with myself in the one that made me unhappy is I think, I had to get it done a certain way. And when I let that go, which was over a decade later, it was so freeing. It was like I really found I do my best work when I'm not, putting it all on myself. Some people might work differently. And the other thing I would say with, film being accepted, like people are making TikTok videos with one person talking to the other person, and it's the same guy with the hat on.
Yeah.
People are accepting lower levels of film. There's another filmmaker I really admire. His name's Terry Chu. I think I recommended him to you as well. Yes. He did Open Doom Crescendo, which is like a 3-hour, 3.5 hour DIY film. That's like a post-apocalyptic anime, angst-ridden. It's brilliant. It's played here in Toronto a bunch of times. He's from Montreal, but he's very much of the spirit of, this doesn't have to get me a Hollywood career. This is a film I'm making now. He did a film called Mango Shake, where it reminded me actually a lot of Schizopolis, with that creativity of like a young man going out there and he's throwing it all on the screen. It's heart. And the thing with Terry too is he's not afraid to show emotion. He's not afraid to show angst. He's not afraid to be real on the screen, which you don't see very often nowadays. Everyone's covering stuff up, and everyone's, trying to, appeal to this market, appeal to that. So I think with films being, and I'm not saying this because I'm shooting YouTube videos for like no money, but I do think I think movies have become money. I think what we've done is we've let people who make money, like that's all movies are for, is to make them money. We've let them take over the movies. So we can't be surprised when the people who make money from movies are now the artists, because they know how to make money. They know how to, finagle this here so that it appeals to this person, and finagle that. And, it's sucking the art out of the film. You like to be surprised by film. You'd like to see something that isn't market tested. You'd like to see something that's personal, that's coming from someone who, only you could tell this film. There's no one else on earth who could tell this film.
But the other thing is, too, you like to see something that they don't have a fucking trailer that shows all the best parts of the fucking movie.
But you shouldn't have a movie that has 4 best parts. Like, I think there's so many great filmmakers out there who, if they're not trying to use their short film or whatever as a stepping stone to get, I'm not even saying views and stuff, but like maybe I'll become famous from this. When I did Schizopolis 2 and I'm doing these other films, I'm doing it as a hobby, really. I expect to make no money off them, nor do I. It's not a plan to like, and one day It's like, no, I'm making these out of love. I love the movies. I love telling stories. And I think if more people go in there, people accept movies made for no budget at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're sincere and you tell a story that's, and not everyone's going to be a great storyteller. Some people do want to tell a slasher with all the tropes and, oh, it's an homage to this. But if you can put yourself in there, I think no AI program, no Hollywood exec with doing test screenings is going to be able to replicate what you bring to a movie. So that would be what this old man who's super unsuccessful, and you should not listen to a word I say.
That's great advice, though.
That would be my advice.
Excellent advice.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I winged it. I was kind of hoping it would work out.
But Christopher, let's shoot to the fun part of the interview. You know what's next, right?
This was all boring beforehand. Good. I am glad.
I know it wasn't.
You can label on YouTube boring, skip.
All right. I'm going to ask you a random horror question. You ready?
All right. This is why I wasn't watching the interview, so I could.
Yeah. And this is a question I've never asked anyone.
Okay.
I just thought of the top of my head. You ready?
All right.
If you could take two horror characters and combine them to make a super fucking horror character, or badass horror character, which two would you combine and why?
I would take Shelly from Friday the 13th Part 3, who is a prankster and the nerd, and Freddy Krueger. All right, I should put some thought into this.
Okay.
But make Freddy Krueger the child-killing prankster nerd. Yeah. Let's see. If I had to do two characters and combine them, that's tough. Because so many are kind of like each other, to be honest. I want to go like Cemetery Man or something like the Rupert Everett type of stoic hero, or the Ash Williams type of stoic hero. That's something I miss from films. I'm going to go with that. Like Ian McCulloch. I'm a big Ian McCulloch fan. He's the only celebrity I've ever paid money to meet, because I didn't know that's something I had to do. But he's the star of Zombie, Contamination, and oh my God, Dr. Butcher MD. And I love what I love so much about Ian McCulloch, and I think he does this better than anyone else. If you've seen Zombie, he's almost like a James Bond type figure. He's like this classy British hair, comb over, speaks with a British accent, very, he almost seems like he could be doing Shakespeare in the Park. And he's in these gory fucking Italian films, like with people getting their eyeballs. But he's the hero who always like, let me take care of this, and pushes a woman out of the way, and I'm gonna someone's evil, and he punches them. And I miss that character, like, and it's a genuine like hero character. He's an archetype. He's the one who, and I thought because when I first saw Zombie, when I rented it, I was scared to rent Zombie for the longest time because I saw some stills in Fangoria or Gore Zone. I was like, oh my God, that's super gory. But I do find Ian McCulloch's character of like the hero, he made it a lot easier to watch. I think my wife is going to sleep upstairs, so my voice is gonna go down a minute. But he made it a lot easier to watch, and he was sort of a safety net because you had this, hero character. So I love that archetype. So I'm going to take that archetype, and I think Ash Williams is sort of a, parody of that character in a way, yes. Or at least he becomes one. So I'm going to take the hero. Were you talking villains, by the way? I may have just one.
It could be anyone.
I'm going to take the hero. Shit, I don't have anyone to combine. The hero's perfect. All right, I got to take some imperfect. Last chance to combine two. I'm going to combine a zombie.
Which zombie, though?
Bud, of course. Bud, the zombie who's sort of remembering his humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to have to bow out of this. Who would you do? Maybe that's how I'll.
Who I do? I would probably do fucking Freddy and Michael Myers, or Freddy and Jason, because this motherfucker can attack you in your fucking dreams and in real life. You know what I mean? Like, that's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, that's true. I had a thought. I would do Jason, and they're very much alike anyway. And the great white shark from Jaws. And I guess it would almost be Junji Ito-ish with his Gyro, but like have a shark,
Mm-hmm.
a decomposing zombie-like shark. I
Holding
guess there's
machete.
like 8 billion shark movies right now. I just got the idea of Bruce the Shark in my head. It's like, oh man, wouldn't that be cool if he was going through a camp and like you had to hide from Bruce the Shark on land? But then I realized, oh, there's like 500 movies. I suck at this. I should have listened to your previous interviews.
But this is
like,
a brand new question. I've never asked anyone this question.
It's something I've never thought of, and I'm terrible when things are sprung on me.
Okay, all right, here we go.
All right, you're gonna mix it up, and maybe I can come back to this one.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Which final girl? I've never asked this question here. Which final girl did you find annoying?
Annoying? Mm-hmm. Nancy.
Really? From Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yeah, she was one of those. You don't understand anything, Dad. Why don't you just leave me alone?
I love Nancy.
I don't know. I was at that age when I saw it, where like, oh my god, an angst-ridden teenager. No, thank you. Other than that final girl that I found annoying, I love Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah, I think it probably would be Nancy. I hate to say it, but that's one of the reasons I'm not fond of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, is I don't like the teens in it.
Well, this is not random. I think might hear me say this word, but the the last Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that came out on Netflix.
Ooh.
The two fucking sisters fucking drove me fucking nuts. I was glad one got his head fucking cut off. I wish he would have killed the other one. They both were fucking annoying.
I think so. I love that movie. I think it's a great film, and it's a great. It's probably the best follow-up to the first one since the second one. I think the second one's a blast. I think Tobe Hooper had a lot of fun with it.
I hated the first all the characters in that movie.
I think people hate hippies too. And I think
except for the redneck, I actually like them.
Which one?
The redneck mechanic guy. I actually like them.
Oh no, I mean in the first one, people hate hippies.
Oh yeah.
At that time, people loathed hippies.
Yes.
And what I really loved about the first one is I almost don't consider it a slasher film. I might do something with the Leatherface villain, because I find Leatherface a fascinating villain, because he's the maternal figure in this, because it's the hippies who are free love. They don't believe in the family unit or anything like that, and they go to Texas, which is a Canadian. I always think of Texas as very right wing, and of course hippies are the most left wing possible, and they go to this house of horrors, which I don't even like. It is a domesticated house. It is what they've been trying to avoid with free love. Like, we're trying to give that up. And this, house in Texas is built on bones of the dead and stuff like that. Like, almost what he redid in Poltergeist with the building the house on the native reservation or native graveyard, indigenous graveyard. But how, you have the father figure, the cook, you have the mother, who's really keeping the house in order. Leatherface, like I think he wears a female mask at one point. I love that part where he sits and he's, all these kids are coming to the house and he doesn't know what to do. You have the kid who's running around like crazy, drawing on people's vans and stuff like that. And this is what these, the hippie characters who people, oh, dirty hippies, I hate hippies, but they wanted peace. They wanted a world where we don't kill each other. They wanted, I don't think their ideals, I think when their ideals fell, we really vilified them, but their ideals were that terrible. But they were unrealistic. And they go into this house of horror where it is a domesticated house that kills them all, and then tries to indoctrinate the final girl. Like, they tie her up at the table, they try and make her eat lunch, or supper. It's a brilliant film. It works so much more than a slasher film. The themes in it, from the hippies and the domesticated family, Texas being right wing, the hippies being left wing, that the house being built with bones and dead things like Ed Gein. It's fantastic. It's a masterpiece. Um, and then what I loved about the new one is we do have the new I hate hippies type people, which is I think we call them woke now. I think we called them social justice warriors a couple of years ago. We probably had a different name for them, like cucks or something. We had a name to call them all the time. And these people, they're not terrible people. They're people who, they have their ideology too, but they come into Texas again. And I love how it's on a bus this time too. And it reminds me very much of that shot of the cattle in Texas Chainsaw 1, and all these doe-eyed, innocent people who think like, oh, we can go into this town and make it, a beautiful place to live. It's very naive, and they hurt someone in the process, which I don't think Sally and the gang ever do hurt someone. They just trespass on someone.
They lied too, and they lied.
Yeah, and it shows, the excuses they make for a better world. Well, we got to do this because we want this. And I don't think they did lie. I think they didn't know she actually still had the deed to the property.
No, the black guy, he said, he told her, I had the deed. I bought the property or something like that. And then she asked him, the sister said, go show me it on the bus. And then he got on the bus. He was like, yeah, I don't have it.
Okay, so it wasn't the two sisters thought.
Yeah, they thought they were lied. Yeah.
Vilifying him, of course.
Yeah.
But he was the first to die too. So that's definitely a flaw.
Yeah.
But I did find, them going to make the world a better place. And once again, they go to Texas. And now I love that Leatherface is older. And, they've sort of gotten that maternal feeling. But I also liked how they used Sally Hardesty with so many, they kind of ignore trauma. And I know trauma is a word that's used so much in the horror genre. Oh, my horror movie is actually about trauma. When it's like, yeah, that's an age-old thing to make a horror movie about. It's, the girl from Nightmare on Elm Street is having dreams about her dad doing this, and it's actually about trauma. The girl from Friday the 13th was molested when she was young, so that's about trauma. It's something that's very commonplace. But I love that they made Sally Hardesty, because this is something that happens. You build yourself up, but trauma is not something that's a movie thing you get over. And when she encounters, the nightmares she's been having, she crumbles. And I find that very human. That brought a lot of humanity to the role. She wasn't like Jamie Lee Curtis, who I like the first of the Halloween movies, but she isn't the first of the David Gordon Green ones.
Yeah, I did too. 2018.
But she's very human in that moment, and she just freezes, and that made me feel so bad. She tried to build herself up so much, and it seemed like people were angry at that, like, oh, she should, that shows weakness, and it's like, no, that makes her human. I think that's a very possible reaction to facing something that you've never confronted. She's never gotten over that. She thinks about it every day. So there's so many things in that movie that I think are home runs, really, that got me thinking. And I think there's some great set pieces as well. The flowers, which harkens back to the hippies with the new ideologists who want to make the world. They do want to make the world a better place under their umbrella, what they think.
Yeah, gentrification. Yes, but like, because, all right, so like when this movie came out, right? I was working with a lot of. So I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and DC.
Is that the Goat Man?
Huh?
It's a Goat Man from Baltimore, Maryland. What's the urban legend there?
Urban legend. We got Black Aggie and.
Okay, where's Goat Man from? Can you still see me, by the way?
Yep.
All right. Because I did a show called Prince George's County, Maryland, United States. I did a series way back when on urban legends and stuff, and I always think Maryland Goat Man. But go ahead.
But so I was, working with a lot of real estate investors, and because they're gentrifying DC. So DC used to be known as Chocolate City, and it's vanilla as can be now. And
that's
Yeah, so they're doing the same thing with
Oh,
Baltimore
yeah.
City. Yeah, so they're doing the same thing with Baltimore City now, right? So,
The
uh,
Wire was in Baltimore, wasn't it?
yes, The Wire,
Okay, you're
yes.
showing the gentrification,
So
I think, in there
you
way back then.
what? So you know what Baltimore looks like, but
Yep.
Baltimore City looks like. So, but it's like I see some of these white real estate agents who don't know anything about Baltimore City, and they come into that dangerous. I'm gonna say they come into an area and of an element, looking a certain kind of way, dressed a kind of driving a certain kind of car, and don't know that they're
Mhm.
in an unsafe situation.
Which I think that's a perfect analogy, though I think real estate agents are probably scummier.
But these are
But
not.
that's a perfect analogy.
But these weren't real estate agents. These were investors, like in this movie. These are
Mhm.
people who are investors. I want to do some flips, and they come into these areas and they don't know what situation they're in. That they're walking into a dangerous situation.
Mhm. I agree with you 100%. As I said, I don't think the women in the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think they're less likable than Sally and Frank. Well, maybe not Franklin, but Kirk and Jerry and them. In the first one, I think there's nothing really detestable about what they do. They're there to see their family's estate, and they go over to the neighbors uninvited, and that's sort of their sin. Whereas these people, you are right, they are driving into an area and they don't know anything about it, and they drive in like they own the place, and
Mm.
there's that sort of privilege that
take down that Confederate flag and this and that. Like,
yeah, well,
it's
there's
not
that privilege
yours.
that they
Yeah.
feel too. And these are people who have, I don't think they're evil people. I think they're people who are very narrow. They have a very narrow vision, like the hippies did. The hippies, what they believed was pretty good for the most part. Don't kill each other. We should live in peace, no war. That's all great stuff. And I think these girls went in there and they were going. I think they even compare the Texas Chainsaw, and I would compare this new one to a fairy tale of Hansel and Gretel wandering into the witch's house. And I think that's the same here. They go in, and I really liked it. In fact, I
I
would
didn't.
say
I wasn't a fan.
I love the new Texas Chainsaw.
I wasn't a fan of it, but character development, it made me feel something about the characters. I hated the characters. And so something I say, well, a lot of horror doesn't give good character development. Where I don't feel either way about the characters or the victims. I I was rooting for Leatherface in that movie.
Yeah, he certainly wasn't vilified. His mom, or the woman who, yeah, his mom for better.
You you
She
you're
was,
trespassing. You're trespassing.
yeah, and she died. Like,
Yeah.
there's a righteous anger there. I think there's a lot going on under the surface that people aren't looking into. I think people want to see a slasher film, and I think the first one was never a slasher film. I remember I was on a podcast recently, and someone said, like, what do you like better, slashers or giallos? And I was thinking, like, well, giallo, but Texas Chainsaw is one of my favorite movies. And they said, well, it would be slashers then. And it's like, I don't really consider
No,
Texas Chainsaw a slasher.
it's more
Like,
psychological, if anything.
well, it's even a haunted house. It's closer to a haunted house when the people wander into the house. That it's more House of a Thousand Corpses even.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you call that a slasher? Like, granted, there is a guy with a chainsaw who chases people, and that was their reasoning for it being a slasher. And I can't argue that.
But that movie didn't even have a lot of gore in it, or blood, or
No, it was walking. It's closer to the Ju-on house than people going to camp and partying. And I think they all had, like, the better ones had agendas. I actually like all the Texas Chainsaws except for one. I didn't like the 3D one. The one.
I dislike a lot of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Like, I love. So my favorite, believe it or not, is Part 2.
Part 2's amazing.
I love Part 2.
I love Part 2.
And then second place is actually the reboot, the one with Jessica Biel. I know a lot might get a lot of shit for that. I actually like that.
It's enjoyable.
Yep. And then the original is in third place. So, like, yeah,
that's madness, but
but Texas Chainsaw Massacre is, I feel like it has a lot of bad movies. I mean, there was that
I would disagree.
Really?
I think, okay, so the first one, you've heard my love for that. The
Mm-hmm.
second one, I think Toby Hooper had a lot of fun with it, with the reputation the first one has, he brings into the second one, but it's about capitalism. It's once again about, Texas being right wing. Toby Hooper was a hippie at heart. Um, then you have part three, which was the Leatherface one, which I've always liked. It has Ken
You like
Foree.
one?
I I I don't even know what people really dislike about it. It's one of those ones I watch and it's like I'm enjoying myself. It's like it has that guy singing, "All you motherfuckers, don't tell me what I should do,"
Now,
which is the greatest song ever written. Um,
now, please
it
tell me
had
you don't like the next one, which is
I
Next
do.
Generation.
I
You like Next
That's
Generation?
the Kim Henkel one, which is actually very close to the Butcher Boys. So he did the Butcher Boys like years after, which reminded me of that version of Texas Chainsaw in the city. And I do love that, you know, you have these, let's say, poor white trash, because I'm sure they're called that in reviews and stuff, but they do represent something more than poor white trash. So when you have them connected to the businessmen at the end, I found very satisfying when it's insane.
It's
Um,
absolutely insane.
and it's probably the most insane of all the parts.
Yeah.
But when the plane shows up at the end or the helicopter, it's been a while since I've seen it. They really embrace that Leatherface is the maternal figure in that. Like I'm sure he kind of went into slasher territory after for a little bit. He seemed like, okay, it's Leatherface chasing people with a chainsaw, but they embraced like what was weird and kind of cool about Leatherface is that he is the maternal figure in that family. So I really like that one. I need to rewatch it again. I don't really like it. I like that one.
Okay.
I like the reboots. I did not like the 3D one.
The 3D one was horrible. Yes, I actually
Yeah,
saw
that
that
seemed
in
just dull to me.
theaters. Yeah, I actually seen that one
Um,
in the theater.
and was there another one before the Netflix one?
But there was one on Sci-Fi. It was called
Oh,
Letter.
I really enjoyed that, even though I thought the ending was very, very obvious. I'd like I think it was Dark Horse or something, put out these comic books of like Friday the 13th, Leatherface, and Nightmare on Elm Street that would tell little side stories
Mm-hmm.
of like Pamela Voorhees. They'd tell a little story about her. And the sheriff in Texas Chainsaw, they tell a little story about him. And this reminded me very much of that series. Like, here's a little story about Leatherface growing up. And even though I said I didn't like that the ending was so easy to figure out, I wish they kind of just said it at the beginning. I did like that, that same character who becomes a maternal figure, who is the one who is stressing in the kitchen. Everyone else is insane. Like the father figure, the cook says for a little while, like, I don't like anything to do with the killing, but then he starts laughing when she's in pain. Like, it's terrifying, but it's also darkly funny, and the hitchhiker just crazy. Leatherface is a little neurotic. Like is your thing beeping now?
No, you're
If I
good.
talk on way too long. Um, but Leatherface, I think, is a fascinating character. He's neurotic. And to see him grow up as a kid with like morality and stuff like that, and to what he becomes, I found that a really good backstory for him.
I wasn't a fan of that one.
And I like that he was taken on it was a very violent film, and I like those two directors
It was
a lot.
about yes,
Yeah.
but listen, but it was. I believe the saying is a red herring. That you definitely thought it was going to be the big guy. Like it made sense.
Oh, for sure. But I think as soon as you saw like how obvious that character was going to be, it's like, okay, well, it's not him, and there's only one character. So it's like, well,
but I want a good Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know who's going to do it. I don't know where they're going to, if they're going to.
I think there's 7 of them.
Huh?
I think there's like 7 or 8 of them.
No, I feel like Texas Chainsaw Massacre falls in that same category as Predator. You know what I mean? Like Predator has, God knows, I don't know how many fucking Predator movies are right now, but there's one good one, and there's a bunch of like There's a couple like and then there's a whole bunch of awful ones.
Which one's the I don't think that I actually don't think that's
The
is it the one with Adrian Brody?
Is is Adrian Brody one? Yes.
Okay.
That's okay.
And I know a lot of people like part 2. It's got a good cast. I found it kind of boring.
Yeah, I don't like Predator 2. I didn't like the one that which I'm surprised, which I was so pissed off because the director he was a director of the movie Good Guys with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. He directed that one.
Shane Black?
Shane Black, and he was in the first one. I was so fucking let down because that movie came out on my birthday.
Yeah, it's a dull film.
And I went to see it on my birthday in the movie theater, so I was so excited. And I was just like, oh shit.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of I didn't even want to see the first one. I thought the first one was just going to be another Commando. So I remember kind of being dragged to the theater and like, oh my God, I was halfway through. This is a horror movie. This is amazing. But I didn't think there was many places that could go. And I think probably the Adrian Brody one's the best one to bring it to, not just repeat the first one, but like bring it to a new place. And even that one's not that good.
It's okay.
Yeah, so it's not anything I really. Well, like I said, with most franchises, I don't really think they're going to be.
Yeah, and that's like bring up the Alien versus Predator movies. Those movies are fucking unwatchable.
Yeah, I was shocked at how bad those were.
They're unwatchable.
Yeah, I really, I was surprised because Lance Henriksen's in one. Not like Lance Henriksen. It's like he's only in good films. But yeah, it definitely. I would have said the same for Alien too. Like, oh, it's an alien on a spaceship. I remember when I first saw it, I wasn't even that impressed. It's like it's a slasher movie with an alien, and like
I like the first 3. Well, I like the first 2, and the third one was like,
The first one's grown on me a lot since then. In fact, I would go as far to say I now like the first one the best because it's all the atmosphere. And I think it's because I was watching it on a pan and scan VHS the first couple times I watched it, and then the first time I saw it on DVD or Laserdisc or whatever it was, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. The second one I really liked. The third one's okay. But I thought like it's just aliens on a spaceship. But I actually like that they try. I thought the fourth one was fine. I liked the 2 latest Ridley Scott ones. I know that could get me thrown out of a party. Prometheus and Covenant. I really like the idea of our creator.
Covenant. I did like Covenant.
I like that one too. I really like it's flawed. Both films are flawed, but I don't think the flaws take away the interesting concept of like the people, God, essentially, the creator, the one who makes us, decides like, and I'm sure with good reason that we're not worth keeping around.
Yep.
Like we're awful. We kill each other. We're destroying the earth. Like I know they always in a movie, like they always like, but we love, and and so humanity is worth keeping around. But that's kind of horseshit. Like even love is a lot of times very like we like to love. It's something that gives us happiness too. So something like The Ninth Configuration, which is about real sacrifice, like a William Peter Blatty movie. The only other movie he did directed other than Exorcist 3, it's fantastic, about love. But nevertheless, I do like that the creators like, yeah, we're gonna wipe our creations out, and they use aliens to do that. And I like the build up to it. I didn't like that the scientists started touching things with their hands, or she didn't run to the side instead of keep running straight. Those were flawed. But for the most part, I thought he brought a sense of intelligence back to the series. It wasn't just, like it didn't seem like it was made by executives. It seemed like it was made by an artist.
Yes.
And I'll always take that over like people like this and they're smoking their cigar and you got to put more of this in the picture. I'd rather have some weirdo like Ridley Scott say like, you know what we got to do? We got to make the creators of the aliens also our creators, and they look like yeah. I any day of the week I would rather have that than some guy who talks about his car for half the day. decide, what should be in an alien movie, and like, oh, she's got to do this, she's got to get superpowers and stuff like. So yeah, I quite like those films.
Amazing. All right, so Christopher, where can everyone find you, my friend?
Well, right now I'm sitting in my house.
Give us your address.
Actually, I apologize. I don't think this interview went very well at all. And usually doing poor interviews makes me feel very, very nauseous. So now that we're coming at the end of the interview, I'm feeling kind of sick. And you don't mind if I vomit, just briefly.
Sure, that might give me some views.
Wait. Ooh. In my puke. Was this your card?
What? I can't even see the card. What is it?
It is the 9 of spades. Have you frozen? This is a perfect time for you to freeze. Because I'm correct, aren't I?
I have the 5 of spades.
The 5. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube and shit. I don't fucking care. Stupid world we live in anyway. People fucking making videos and watch me eat chicken wings and puke. Magic. That would have been nice. Magic or a nice cushy job at McDonald's. I guess I'm still making films. So I have a YouTube channel. I should really figure out what the name of that is. I think it's called The Editor Chris.
Well, it's going to be in the description, so click on that link.
Okay, so I'm on YouTube. All my films, none of my magic tricks are on there. I can be found on Facebook. Christopher Brown, super uncommon name, very rare. You won't find anyone else. I'm on Instagram under. Has anyone else had to look up their own shit?
Yes.
No, I'm under Christopher 1 Schizopolis 2. And if you want to join my YouTube channel, that would bring up it to 30 happy subscribers. Oh. I know. It's one day I hope to get to 31.
Hey, might be tomorrow.
Might be tomorrow?
Might be today, actually.
No, no way. I think as soon as people watch my stuff, it usually goes down.
You think they'll lose? By the way, it is upsetting. So I think I'm doing pretty good subscriber rate. But it's pretty upsetting when I see my subscription thing go down, even by 1. I'm like, well, who the fuck just unsubscribed to my shit? Like, whoa!
I hate to break the news to you, but don't look at your subscriber count after this interview goes up.
Anytime I see that happen, I'm like, who the fuck unsubscribed to my? Like, what the fuck did I say or do that caused you to unsubscribe? Because I don't unsubscribe to anybody. Like,
it's all that Faces of Horror people who God, I love Faces of Horror.
I think that's who it is. I think that's who it was. I think it was the Faces of Horror people who unsubscribed, because I don't unsubscribe to any. I'm sorry, I'm subscribed to shit from years ago that I don't even watch. But I'm never like, you know what? I'm gonna go by and unsubscribe to that person.
I will say, so my film Schizopolis 2, you may have heard of it if you've been watching this for the last fucking 8 hours or however long it's going on. It got a review from, I hope by this time, if anyone from this magazine. I loved a magazine when I was growing up. I just loved it, called Film Threat. I thought it was the greatest magazine. It got me into film. It got me into a different way of thinking of film. And I submitted Schizopolis 2 to Film Threat, their website, to review. And I was thrilled when I got the review back. Got 7.5 out of 10. The reviewer said it was better than the first one, which I totally disagree with, but it's still a nice compliment. Because Schizopolis is a masterpiece. You should watch it if you haven't seen it. But so I subscribe to their Facebook feed and I subscribe to their YouTube page, and I've been tempted recently because it's a lot of like they're really happy that the Marvels bombed, and they're really happy, like when something that's female led bombs, or when they change the race of a character, and it's like fuck. I want to support them because like I used to really love them and they like my film, but there's that part that's like hovering, like I could just not see this shit. But
here's the thing. But here's the thing. If you don't watch any of this shit, like even if you're subscribed to somebody, if you don't watch any of this shit, like for a period of time, it just doesn't come up on your fucking home screen. Like
I'll wait for that day then.
Because like there's a YouTube channel. First, Dead Meats, right? I'm pretty sure you heard Dead Meat.
No.
But Dead Meat has like millions. It's a horror YouTube channel. It has millions of subscribers.
Do they barf? Is there a bunny that barfs on it, or is there any BDSM?
Well, but they actually do this really cool thing. It's called kill count, right? So like,
I think I've heard of this. And how many people died in a movie?
So like, if it's a horror movie that you don't want to necessarily fucking sit and watch, but you want to know what it's about and what the best kills are, like it's boom, 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 and like, and I haven't watched them and I'm definitely a subscriber to theirs, and I haven't watched one of their things in a good year or two, and it just doesn't come up on my home screen anymore. It's just, but I'm still subscribed to them. It just doesn't. The algorithm doesn't, because the way the YouTube algorithm works is it recommends shit that you're fucking watching,
That makes
so
sense.
only shit. So like, if you're watching,
that's why no one watches my stuff.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, if you're watching this interview right now at 2 hours and 9 minutes in, which I don't think anybody is, but
yeah, we could like do anything we want right now. So let's talk about very controversial subjects right now.
I know. I killed 2 people, by the way. No, I'm joking. But
only 2. Amateur hour.
But it, like, if you're watching this video and whatever my titles is indie horror, right? It's going to only recommend, you're going to see a whole bunch of shit about indie horror.
Yeah.
It's going to come up on your YouTube channel for the next fucking weeks. If you're not a subscriber and you just click on my shit, boop, you're going to see all my shit for the next couple weeks. You're going to see all, you don't have to
you sometimes
subscribe.
accidentally click on something you don't want, like you're not interested in, some right-wing thing that like, I wonder what this person's saying about this, and then next thing you know, you're indoctrinated with like
3 or 4 weeks. For like 3 or 4 weeks, you can see their shit on your home screen.
Yeah.
So like, if you watch this video and you're not a subscriber of mine, for 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to see my fucking face pop up on your damn thing.
And what a luxury that is.
Yeah,
you're a handsome man.
And by the way, hit that subscribe button. I don't say that enough in my videos. Hit that like and that subscribe button.
Well, usually when you wait 2 hours and 10 minutes to say it, I don't think it's as effective.
Done. But if you just don't watch the fucking channel, it just disappears off your home screen. But you're still supporting them by being a subscriber.
All right, I will not unsubscribe. You've convinced Film Thread should be thanking you.
Yes. You just,
if you ever do read, they have like their Facebook feed is fantastic. It's a ton of indie horror, just indie films. Well, I also wanted to mention, speaking of people who reviewed my film, another person, Mark Fusion, who kind of reminds me of what you're doing. He does YouTube, but he never did a YouTube review for mine. He just did a written one. But it's a guy called Mark Fusion, and he does written reviews. He gave my film fairly positive, a positive review. And he does, like, I will say, when I ask other people, I either never hear back from them. Like when I first when I tried to, there's one story, and boy, this is going to be long. Not the story, but your podcast or your video. What do you call it when it's a YouTube video?
video?
video.
I just call it video. Yep. Okay.
There was one guy, I watched a review of his on YouTube. I'm not going to say his name, but he gave a very positive review to a low budget film I really liked. And at the end, he said, and if you're a low budget filmmaker, you know, it's really hard to get people to review your movies. Please send me your movie. I would love to watch it. And this is before I even put out Schizopolis 2. And I thought, oh, I'm going to send Schizopolis 2 to this guy. And he disappeared for a little while. I saw on my, because no one was watching it because it was unlisted or whatever it was. I saw, oh, he watched some of it, all of it, I don't know. I didn't know you can see the time at that time. So I thought, oh, it's been watched. I wonder what his review is going to be like. Disappeared for a while, came back. He had an existential crisis about his life and what he was doing with his life. And he was like, I can't fucking do Twitter and I can't do this anymore. And like, basically, like, it seemed like, I don't know if it coincided with watching my movie, but it did coincide with watching my movie. He like watched my movie and like, oh fuck, why do I do this shit to myself? And like, he almost quit. He's back now, thankfully.
Wow.
But he disappeared for a while, and like, he came out and said like, yeah, this isn't worth my like, and that's pretty I affected someone, I suppose.
Yeah. All right, so since no one's watching, listen, for the viewers who are watching, you're about to get a exclusive. So, all right, so let me tell you the worst rejection I've ever gotten. So, you know, I seek out filmmakers and people, right? And majority of the time, I'm the one who's putting my foot out there to try to get them on for an interview. So let me tell you the one that hurt, the rejection that hurt the most. And it didn't hurt the most because it was the, yeah, it hurt because the way the person said it and who the person was, or I should say who the person wasn't, right? This was not like Robert Englund, or this was not like, I don't know, John Carpenter or anybody, right? This was one person that's been in one iconic movie, and they had like a 2-minute scene. And they're on the horror convention circuit on regular, and like I messaged them and I was like, hey, listen, I would love to have you on my show, horror channel. And the person was like, how many subscribers do you have? At that time, I think I had like 250 or something like that, right?
I'll never have that much.
I had like 250 or something, and I said, I didn't know why. I'm brand new to YouTube. I was like, why the fuck she asked me that? But okay, 250, and she was like, no, yeah, I'm gonna be busy for a while. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I just got like hard rejected by the person who is famous for being in one iconic horror movie for like 2 minutes.
Say her name. Go ahead. No one's watching.
Nancy Ritter. Do you know who that is?
I don't know who that is.
She was in the original Scream movie. She was the bathroom chick. She was one of them. Do you remember Sydney was in the bathroom crying, or she was sick or something? And it was two girls standing in the sink, and one had short hair and she had no bra on. She had nipples, and the other one was like a cheerleader.
Okay.
It was the one with the nipples.
Okay. Yeah, I guess she.
See, I mean, no one knows.
I would not take that personally. Honestly, I think probably I can't. Maybe I'll look up her filmography and see, like, oh my God, she's in this, she's in that,
Nothing.
she's in this.
Nothing.
But yeah, obviously, someone who doesn't want to talk. I think what you bring to the table is like, we've now been talking for 2 hours and 10 minutes or some ungodly length, and you're very easy to talk to. You bring up good questions and stuff like that. And some people, as I said, when my useless advice, like, there are people who are out there just to promote themselves. That's all they want. They don't want to talk their craft. They don't want to talk about what brought them to making films. They don't want to talk about, you know, what inspires them, or, you know, what they hope to become, or anything. They just want to promote. And that's why subscriber count counts. It's not you, it's not your channel or anything. It's just like this mentality of like, it's a business. And I think that's a shame, because film is an art. No matter what they tell you, it's an art. And I think there's some great artists out there making work that they don't care about money at all.
Yep.
And I love that idea. I would like to see, like, I actually like Marvel films and stuff like that, but I would like to see, with the, you know, almost obscene amounts of money put on screen now, for people to start going towards smaller things. It happened in the 70s. People wanted to watch personal films. It happened in the 90s when the indie film kind of took off and people were watching Fargo and people were lining up to see like all these 90s indie films. That was a great time to be a film fan. And I think we could go back to that. I think, unfortunately, with YouTube, and one of my criticisms of it is the attention span thing. To see a 2-hour anything, an hour and a half anything, it almost does need to have bells and whistles and smoke and mirrors in it to get people to watch it.
But I got laser beams shooting on my head. Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't. The audience has always been like that. There's always been people going to see Independence Day and not Romeo is Bleeding. There's always been people who's been going to see Speed and not 2 Days in the Valley, even though that's not a great film, but some indie film. That's always been the way. And I think so many people, once again, are equating success with worthiness. And you can make a really good cheap film. You can make a really good no-budget film, and just be proud of it.
I've seen so many. I mean, I've seen so many over time. Like,
and you're letting these filmmakers talk. It's great.
Even like I go to a lot of horror conventions, right? I go to the big ones, but the best horror convention I've been to this whole entire year might be in the last couple of years is, and I interviewed the actual guy who was starting up. It was his first year and was in Columbia, South Carolina. And I drove the 12 hours, whatever, to go to this convention. And it was this little small horror convention. And it was the best experience I ever had at a horror convention, like ever. There was not a whole bunch of big names there.
Yeah, those were always nice.
Yeah, it was just like,
we had one in Toronto called Horrorama that was fantastic for that.
Yeah, I mean, and we had one in Baltimore. It's called Monster Mania, but it's gotten so big now, and it's like I don't even like going to them. I really don't, because I mean the parking.
Any place that's full of people, I don't want anything to do with.
It's like but like I love talking about that South Carolina Horror Con so much because it's small, it's personable. Like the owner, I can't even think his damn name now. I want to say it's James, but like he was at the door greeting everybody. You know what I mean? He was like, "Hey, what's up?"
Awesome.
Like he knew I was coming in to like film, a walkthrough video. He was like, "Nah, dude, you got a press pass. You don't pay." You know what I mean? Because he knew I was promoting his convention.
Yeah.
I can't do that at a Steel City Con or a Monster Mania or anything. No, they're gonna expect their $30. I don't give a fuck if you're trying to promote my videos. We don't need you to promote our video because enough people are coming that they're here to see Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Well, I love that you're there for the little guy, and there needs to be more. Because I would like to see the little guys, a lot more of them. I would love to see more people making personal, small films that they're not trying to use as a stepping stone to get to a bigger film, but they pour their heart into a small film. And I'm sure you would interview them. So, like, my wife's sleeping, so it's a golf.
My door is always welcome to anybody. It's
even serial killers.
Even not real serial killers.
All right, so not anybody.
I don't know. I mean,
what about someone who kills people by putting razors in his shoes and kills people? That's not your average serial killer.
I mean, if a serial killer was behind bars and like some kind of way I could get a behind bars interview with him through fucking Skype or Zoom, sure, I think I would do that.
But what if he killed people in a really interesting way?
What do you mean, like who?
Razor blades in his shoes. He had razor blades in his shoes, and he would like kick people and like cut them in half and stuff. Ichi the Killer style. Like, that's kinda like, okay, you're an awful person, but what made you think of razor blades in your shoes?
Here's my top 3 people that I would love to interview, and these are not even big names people. Are you ready?
Sure.
Felissa Rose from Sleepaway Camp.
All right, she's great.
I would love to interview her. I'd love to interview. I think Tony Todd, Candyman, would be a fun.
He's great. He's a great actor too, so
I think he'd be fun. Damn, who would be the third person I would love to interview?
Everyone would probably say Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell's.
I wouldn't want to. I mean, I would interview Bruce Campbell, but I don't. I met Bruce Campbell several times, and
what's there to say now?
I don't think it would be an interesting interview for me.
All right, he is his own. Like he has a shit he does. So
yeah, I don't think it would be an interesting interview. I think people will watch because it's Bruce Campbell, but I don't think. For me, it would be a interesting, fun. I think he would take over the interview.
What about this other Chris Brown chap that sings? He must be a great guy.
No,
really.
But that actually might
Chris Brown.
But that actually might be fun to interview a crackhead. I don't know.
That's. I don't know. I think people do that on their YouTube channels. They walk around the street and interview like people. It kind of reminds me of like a bum fight sort of thing.
Yeah, I would love to interview. Shit. Okay, here's somebody I would love to interview, and I don't even think he's starred in a horror movie before. I would love to interview Mr. T, and that's random as fuck.
Mr. T's awesome.
I think Mr. T would be a fun interview.
Yeah, he's definitely. I also think he's very likable. Yeah, absolutely.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, I think he may have battled cancer a while ago, but I think he's still alive. If anyone was going to beat cancer.
Okay, well, yeah, I would love to interview Mr. T. I think it'd be a fun interview. And that's a random fucking list. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure everybody said they would love to interview. I don't know. Bruce Campbell. I would love to interview Wes Craven, but he's dead. I mean, I'm thinking about like people I would love to interview.
Just talk to.
Who?
Probably just talk to. It's not even interview. You'd like to talk to them, find out what's going on behind.
I would love to just ramble with them, and even like George A. Romero, I would love to talk to him.
George Romero would be really interesting to talk to.
That would be fun. I'm gonna tell you who I would love to interview, and I'm not a huge fan of his movies except for one, Jordan Peele.
Oh yeah, he'd be interesting. I think he has a big cinematic knowledge. I'm not a huge fan of his films either. I always find they start out more interesting than they end off.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's always a very intriguing premise, and then like
and
my interest peters out.
Yes.
By the end, but I think he's great with premises.
Mm-hmm. I would love to interview Jordan Peele. But that's about it.
I would like to interview.
I've said many times I would love to interview the Terrifier guys, and it's on the sole purpose of I said, and I'm not even a fan of their movies or anything, you know.
Yeah,
and,
they're good films.
They're good films, but I'm not like, I'm not one of these people. Oh, I love Terrifier.
There's no Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the latest one.
Yeah. And I thought part 2 was way better than part 1 of Terrifier. I wasn't a big fan of the part 1, but I respect it for what it was doing.
They also did the All Hallows Eve. They did a shortened that, if I remember correctly, they used in Terrifier.
Yeah, but I never saw those. But I would love to interview those guys for the sole reason because I saw them with my eyeball. I saw them. I saw what they did, you know what I mean? And I'm a marketing guy, and I'm a sales and marketing guy, and I saw what these guys did from the beginning. Like I was going to horror conventions, and I tell the story all the time. I was going to horror conventions, and I kept seeing on the website like the cast from Terrifier is going to be here, and with Art the Clown. I was like, who the fuck is they? Who the fuck are these people? I had no idea who the fuck they were. And they were giving away free autographs and free pictures. At every fucking convention, and I was going to a lot. I kept seeing these fucking Terrifiers. I was like, who the fuck are they? And finally I was like, let me see what this Terrifier thing is, you know? It was after like the third or fourth time of seeing them. I'm talking about back to back at conventions. I was like, let me check and see who they are. And then I seen this movie and I watched it, and I was like, I wasn't a fan of the first movie, but they got me to watch the fucking movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that is an amazing fucking marketing strategy. Even when that movie got big, even when Terrifier 2 came out and did success, these guys are at every fucking horror convention in the United States. Like, they do not take a break. They are in fans' faces. Hey, we're Terrifier guys. Hey, watch Terrifier.
People really appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's like it's an amazing fucking marketing strategy for any indie horror filmmaker. I know most indie horror filmmakers don't have the time or resources to go to every damn horror convention in the company and do free autographs.
If you can make it.
But I mean, if you can do that, if you can do the Terrifier route, I mean, I'm pretty sure that the conventions were paying for their hotel and travel.
At a certain point, I'm sure they were.
Yeah, I think so. So
they brought people in.
Yeah, and now they charge for autographs and pictures and shit. But I'm talking about, but like in the beginning, no. I mean, these guys were.
Well, they made. I think I'm trying to think. I'm sorry. Hopefully, I don't lose you if I have too many windows open. I thought they made something I enjoyed before Terrifier 2. I might be wrong.
But they made something called
Frankenstein versus a Mummy. I like that film. I thought was pretty good.
Oh, I've never seen it.
And it's overly long too. Oh. I remember. I think. When I saw it, it's like, oh, at least they learned to shorten their movies. And then Terrifier 2 is like Heaven's Gate. But yeah, they're. I really like that they've sort of they found their niche. I think the thing about Terrifier movies that are different than a lot of the movies out there is how mean-spirited they are. Usually movies are not that mean-spirited. Like even Hereditary, which is down and stuff like that, it still doesn't take such glee in the destruction of our heroes, of human life and stuff like that.
It's so mean-spirited. And I say that to you, I was like, it's almost too more. For me, is too like I don't like
I can understand
movies that mean. It's just so mean.
I was shocked. I really like Hostel. I liked the idea of like all the things he sort of flipped in that. I really liked the filmmaking and the writing in Hostel, which was weird because I didn't like Cabin Fever at the time.
I love Hostel too. It's my favorite Eli.
I was shocked it was doing so well. It's like, but this is like, really bottom of the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying bottom of the barrel in a good way. Violence. Like, why are people running to the theater to see this? Much like I was surprised when people ran to the theater to see Hereditary. Sometimes I'm very surprised that the movie's mainstream audiences really embrace. Mm-hmm. And Terrifier seems to be one of those. Like, if I was to watch the last one, it's first of all overlong.
It is.
It's really mean-spirited.
But it's overkill. It's overkill too. Like when he kills a victim, it's like it goes on way too longer than it should.
I think the one was really transgressive and great was the good girl, the one you think is going to, sort of be the moral compass and stuff like that. And he kills her over the length of many scenes. Her mother sees her die. Like it's just like it's almost like a sketch or something where it's just like, okay, what worse can happen?
Yep.
And there is that little bit of like, I can't believe they're going for it mentality, but it is also like, that's why I'm not that crazy. I'm sorry, you said he was your favorite director. I didn't like the mean-spiritedness in Wes Craven's movies. I found oftentimes, like, for example, in Last House on the Left, when I saw that, I was kind of shocked at, what those two girls had to go through and that I had to watch it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that when I saw, Nightmare on Elm Street, he is a child killer. He's never said to be a child molester, I don't think, in any of the parts. But usually when people kill, it's not just like, there's a reason they kill. And it might be to destroy the innocents. Who knows? But Wes Craven being Wes Craven, I thought, like, did he make this person like, he's killing children and there's a little bit something shady about him? I think with Scream, if you haven't seen Scream, plug your ears. But the fact they raped and murdered the Nev Campbell, Sydney's mother, was like really mean. Yeah, I think there's a few court cases where I'm like, oh my God, that's really mean-spirited what he's doing. But I guess that works better. Like at the mainstream audiences, sometimes it doesn't bother as much. Maybe they like the shock of that.
That's what I'm saying. I was asking, I was like, dude, have we became, as horror fans, desensitized to certain things? I mean, because I remember watching Terrified 2, and I saw it in the theaters when it first came out. It was limited release, and I remember watching it, and I was like, okay, this is leaps and bounds better than the first one. The story, even like the final girl, amazing final girl, probably one of the best final girls out there. I was like, what the fuck am I watching? You know what I mean? It got to that point where it was super long. It was like 2.5, 3 hours or something crazy. And and I was like, what the fuck am I watching? Like, and it was like just overkill. You know what I mean?
Well, I will say, if you want to look at it from maybe a defensible perspective, there is so much in the slasher era glorification of the killers, which the reason I like Evil Dead so much is like it's the hero that continues, and in Alien, it's the hero that continues. I'm never like, I like Jason because he's kind of a shark. I barely like most of the Halloween movies, but I don't really like following, like I don't get attached to a killer, let's say. And it kind of got to the point where, they were putting Freddy Krueger on posters, and they had him pop, not pop art, but like pop culture.
I had his action figures growing up, you know what I mean?
So, yeah, he had a rap song out, and it might be taking that idea of the glorification or, the fandom of a serial, like someone who's killing people in a movie, and taking it to the extreme the same way like Oliver Stone in Natural Born Killers or Michael Haneke in Funny Games, which we talked about 8 hours ago, rubs your face in it, sort of thing. Like, this is the cool killer. Now look at this awful, awful, awful shit he does. I don't know if they're that intelligent or if there is a transgression to it, but I always give, they're artists. They're, they decided to make movies for their lives. They probably think about movies. They probably think about storytelling. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of that transgression of we're taking the old archetype and we're kind of Michael Hanekeing it up and, rubbing your face and like, okay, he's Art the Clown. Now watch him do these indescribable things.
Yeah.
So I think that's a certain way of looking at it, to say like, okay, maybe that's why it's so mean-spirited.
I mean, he's a great villain. He is a great villain. Art Clown, great villain. And like I said,
the actor who plays him is fantastic.
Yeah, part 2. I like part 2 is better than Legion Bound, but it's like holy shit, like whoa, like 2.5 hours of that is a lot. Like I could not. It's one of those movies
you're going to reach the length of this interview at some point.
I know.
Apocalypse Now of.
You can watch that movie. You can watch that one time and you're good. You know what I mean? It's not one of the movies you'll rewatch over and over.
I usually rewatch. I like rewatching it because I like to think about, the first time you watch something, it's very surface level what you get for the most part. And the second time you watch it, you might start noticing stuff. I'm a big fan of the rewatch, which I think is something that's disappearing in today's day and age of like so many movies available to you. When we were young, I'm sure when you were young too, we'd watch movies like countless times because you had Evil Dead on tape and you were going to watch Evil Dead again because you're not going to, it's not like you can click on a button and watch something new.
Yeah.
And I think for another piece of advice from an unsuccessful filmmaker, rewatching movies, definitely, even if it's a movie that for some reason, like maybe you didn't like, but it's got something in your brain going. Rewatching, like you can learn a lot on the second, third, fourth watch of a movie that you never thought of the first time. So I would watch Terrifier 2 again, just to maybe iron some things out.
I now will go see part 3 because I did enjoy part 2. I'll go see part 3, but I'm not gonna rewatch it. It was just too long and too mean spirited.
I can understand that.
To rewatch it again, it's like an experience. You know what I mean? That I feel like that kind of movie is an experience. You live it once and you move on. All right, Christopher, listen. This is a 4-part.
Wait, series. I have a super long story to tell.
Okay. I'm about to say this is a 4-part series now because there's no way how I can post this 2.5-hour video. I'll get no views at all. So
no. Trust me. I realize now that shorter is better, which is another thing about YouTube that hopefully people start watching longer stuff on it. But
I know, but YouTube has put up the YouTube Shorts now, and people have a 50-second fucking.
Well, that's the thing. I have people like I remember talking to a guy who at a grocery store who was working at a grocery store, and one of the things because I'm a fucking weirdo and I can't talk about real life. I asked, "Oh, have you seen anything good lately?" And he said he only watches. If something's over 5 minutes, he will not watch it. And he's
that's sad, isn't it?
He's 20-something year old, and it's not an uncommon thing. And it's like, oh shit, you're missing out on a lot. Like it's, granted, I'm sure there's an artistry to the 5-minute short. In fact, I've made 5-minute movies myself. But to immerse yourself in something. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want this to be a 5-part one.
It's only gonna be a 3-part. But listen, Christopher, it's been an absolute blast, man. I love having you.
I was very happy to be on your show, and I really, really hope you continue. I hope you get successful so that you continue, and please always go for the little guy. They don't really have much to. You're one of the only guys out there right now who are interviewing people who are making YouTube videos and stuff like that and giving them a platform. So hats off to you, man. That's awesome.
Thank you, my friend. And do you know what I always say? One of those days, a couple of little guys might become a big guy, and hopefully they'll come back on.
That would be great. It won't be me, but I will be watching.
You never know. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. And thank you for watching my 3-part series with Christopher Brown.
No one can say my name without laughing anymore. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.